MECs, leaders of business, ambassadors and high commissioners who are here with us, our traditional leaders, the councillors who are leaders in our local government sphere, religious leaders who are also. It is a great privilege for me to welcome you all to this 2019 South African Investment Conference. It is a particular privilege, I must say, to welcome international guests to South Africa, the land and the home of the champions of world rugby. I hope that some of you landed here a few days ago and yesterday. You could feel the vibe and you could feel the energy of South Africans after winning the World Cup. And I know that some of you were a little bit inconvenienced as you arrived because you had many South Africans coming to the airport to welcome our champions. We apologize for the victory. Ladies and gentlemen, last year we announced our objective to raise $100 billion, or better still, translated into our currency, at the time, 1.2 trillion rand, in new investments over 5 years with a view to addressing low economic growth and reducing unemployment in our country. It is now exactly 1 year since the inaugural South African Investment Conference, where local and international investors responded wonderfully to our call and stood on this platform to make investment announcements totaling nearly 300 billion rand. Of the 31 projects that were announced on this platform last year, 8 projects have been realized and completed, meaning that the money has been spent, factories have either been built or facilities improved, and workers employed, and all has gotten away very well. 17 are in construction or at implementation stage. In total, this represents 238 billion rand of investments that were announced last year. This is a phenomenal achievement by those who stood here to announce those investments. And in many ways, it is gratifying to see commitments that were made at this conference last year materializing in the form of new factories, new facilities, new production lines, new products, as well as new services, but more importantly for us in South Africa, the new jobs that were created flowing out of these investments that were made. I have had occasion to be present at some of these factory and facility openings and have seen with my own eyes the optimism and commitment of the business owners, the management teams, and the workers in all of these establishments. As those facilities were opened, you could see that their hearts and everything else, including their hands, were really lifted. I am pleased to see so many of you here from our own country, as well as from as many as 22 other countries, as Minister Patel said. It is pleasing to see that investors continue to consider South Africa as a country with much to offer and a viable and profitable investment destination. Indeed, we have a lot to offer in the form of our people, in natural and mineral resources, with a young and able workforce. We also have world-class infrastructure, sophisticated telecommunication systems, and a well-regulated financial and banking sector. There is rule of law in this country. Our judiciary is independent and fiercely independent for that matter. And our legal framework is strong, especially around commerce, taxation, maritime issues, competition law, intellectual property, property rights, and indeed other basic human rights as well. We have a vibrant civil society, a very progressive labor regime, and an independent and a robust media. Our democracy is strong, but it is also robust and wonderfully noisy. Very, very noisy indeed. If you look at our members of parliament debating in parliament, you will think that they are so rowdy that they will not be able to make any laws, but they make sensible laws in all that rowdiness. But our institutions are also durable, confirming the political stability of our body politic over the past 25 years and without any shadow of doubt into the future. Yet we are also a country which has many challenges. We are also a country which carries the horrible scars of a sad and horrible past, where the color of one's skin tended to determine one's livelihood and future. Now, despite significant progress over the past 25 years, the legacy of our divided past has left many of our people without good skills, without assets, and without jobs. All these factors have in many ways combined to exacerbate the poverty and the inequality that we see in our country. Of apartheid misrule into a democratic future. We have improved the lives of millions of our people, and we have empowered black people who were the main victims of apartheid policies through policies that we have now adopted, like radical black economic empowerment. The empowerment of women and young people remains the main focus of our efforts. The lives of many of our people in South Africa have improved. Over the last decade, our economy has barely grown. Investment has dwindled, and the rate of unemployment has also increased. Today, we are still reeling and feeling the effects of several years of state capture and corruption, the erosion of important public institutions, and the resultant policy malaise. But even in the face of such great challenges, hope continues to spring eternal in the hearts of South Africans who are determined that they will not yield to despair. As a nation, we have determined that we will not be defeated by challenges that we face. We will not falter on our path to improve the condition and the lives of the people of our country. It is for this reason that as a government, we reached out to our social partners, to business leaders and business organizations, to community-based organizations, to labor organizations, to forge a new compact for growth and development. And it was through this collaboration that we identified several major issues we must address to achieve the economic recovery that our country needs. We have determined that we will move forward, effect far-reaching reforms, and undertake the detailed work required to turn our economy around. And working together, we have made much progress in implementing the policy reforms that I spoke about last year at this conference, creating policy certainty, creating policy consistency and predictability for investors as well as for our citizens. We have acted decisively to end state capture and are rebuilding the capacity of the state. We have fostered greater policy coherence and are improving the alignment across the different spheres and entities of our government. We've been steadily working to create a business environment that is competitive, but also more importantly, conducive for investment in our country, in our economy as well. As a government and as a country, we are clear about what needs to be done and what we need to do. And we are marshalling our every resource and our every capability to do just that. We are on a path of removing impediments and constraints to inclusive growth. We have embarked on a path that is illuminated by policy consistency and regulatory certainty, fiscal responsibility, and decisive interventions to stimulate economic activity in our country. Central to our efforts to ignite growth as well as to create jobs is an ambitious execution-oriented industrial strategy which is founded on partnerships between government, labor, and industry. It prioritizes growth in important sectors such as the automotive, the clothing and textile, gas, chemicals and plastics and tourism, renewable energy, our oceans economy, agriculture, mining and beneficiation, the digital economy and high-tech industries. Master plans for each of these sectors will ensure that infrastructure, skills, incentives, and other resources are directed towards where they have the greatest impact. Today, we will witness the signing of master plans for the poultry and clothing and textile footwear industries. This will lead to the giant retailers in our economy increasing local procurement, an area of great importance for the people of our country, that we should have more and more local procurement by economic actors in our economy. It will also lead to investment and job creation increase. Labor is also committed to improve productivity levels as well. And this is the effect of this compact culture that we have engendered in our country. We have identified special economic zones as platforms that can attract investors and enhance economic growth. To this end, we have established 10 special economic zones in strategic locations around the country where investors are able to produce and export value-added products. This we have done because we have seen how these type of platforms have been enormously beneficial in other locales around the world. Investors are offered preferential corporate tax regime, building support, employee tax incentives, favorable customs regulations, and support for capital as well as for training. Yesterday, I was privileged to attend the launch of a new automotive special economic zone in Tshwane, the capital of our country, a partnership between the Department of Trade and Industry, the Gauteng government as led by Premier David Makura, the city of Tshwane, and the Ford Motor Company of Southern Africa. Now, this automotive SEZ underlines the value of strategic collaboration and partnership in the revival of our economy. This is the compact making and building in real practice. As a major boost to manufacturing, localization, and job creation, 9 companies have already confirmed their intention to set up factories In this special economic zone in Tshwane that I visited yesterday and did the sword turning, they will do so by January of 2021, with some coming on stream well before this date. This will entail an investment of around 3.6 billion rand and the creation of 6,700 jobs, consolidating South Africa's position as the auto hub of the continent. The Ford Motor Company has said that they intend to use this as a springboard and a hub to export into the rest of the continent and indeed the world. It is a sign of the enthusiasm for this opportunity that the first phase of the automotive SEZ was oversubscribed. A few weeks ago, we launched the Mara mobile phone factory in the Dube Trade Port Special Economic Zone in KwaZulu-Natal, in Durban, following the commitment that was made at this very platform by the Mara company. Rapid industrialization is critical if we are to reap the benefits of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which entered its implementation phase in July of this year. This is a historic development for the African continent because it promises to fundamentally reshape the economies of all the countries on our continent. The Continental Free Trade Area Agreement will improve access to existing markets and lead to the creation of new ones. This treaty will unleash the manufacturing and industrial capability of the continent as companies seek to make products for the burgeoning and growing African market and thereby address the absurd situation that African countries do not trade with each other. Trade amongst the countries on our continent is currently at 15%, compared to 47% in the Americas, 61% in Asia, and 67% in Europe. Now, this gives us the opportunity as all African countries to start trading amongst ourselves. As Minister Patel often says, we consume what we do not make, and we make what we do not consume. Now, this is now going to put us in a way where we are going to be able to make what we consume as the entire African continent. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area will change all this. Another critical driver of growth is the investment in infrastructure, which is being ramped up after years of decline. To generate the funding needed for our infrastructure build program, we have set up an infrastructure fund, which is being incubated by the Development Bank of Southern Africa. With an initial investment from government of 100 billion rand, the fund will leverage investments from financial institutions, multilateral development banks, asset managers, and commercial banks. And I'm delighted that some of those are here today. And I'm hoping that they will use this conference as a platform to mine a little bit deeper into what this fund is going to do in terms of infrastructure development. Infrastructure will also be a key driver of our industrialization policies, and component manufacturers across the world will find it as a useful place to set up their own operations. Now, building on the success of our independent power producers program in the field of renewable energy, we will be expanding opportunities for private sector involvement in other areas of infrastructure development. Now, through a newly established investment and infrastructure office in the presidency, headed by Dr. Ramaphosa, who we appointed recently, the President will ensure effective coordination of all aspects of our investment and infrastructure drive and monitor progress with clear packages and clear lines of removing blockages that may be there. Steadily but surely, we are making South Africa a much more competitive destination for investment by reducing the cost and improving the ease of doing business. We have set ourselves the ambition of being in the top 50 countries in the world, in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index within the next 3 years. Through the expanding of network of Invest SA's one-stop shops, we are working to remove bureaucratic as well as administrative hurdles to investment. And this we're doing having had discussions with a number of you as investors and potential investors. We've taken steps and continue to take steps to remove all these hurdles and impediments. This week we launched an integrated online platform for the fast, efficient, and inexpensive registration of companies. This is known as the Biz Portal. This online portal promises to be a game changer for those who want to set up businesses and get going immediately. Through collaboration among several government agencies and with the involvement of the 4 major banks in our country, it is now possible for applicants to register their company at the same time as they register for tax, open a bank account, a domain name, a BEE certificate, the compensation fund and unemployment insurance fund, and all those things. All these things used to take forever to do. We now want it to be done on exactly 1 day. We are aiming for a registration process that will be completed, and as I said, in 1 day, and I'm now going to change that, within a few hours. That is exactly what we want to see happen. Now, detailed work is also underway between government and industry to improve the efficiency of various permitting processes, including, for example, the issuing of water use licenses. It used to take up to 3 years just to get a water permit license. We've now determined that it should not take less than 3 months, and that is going to be the order of the day. We have taken steps to provide greater policy certainty in areas such as mining, oil and gas, and telecoms as part of the efforts to create a stable environment for investment. We have initiated the release of the high-demand broadband spectrum, which will bring down data costs and encourage investment. I was sitting last night at a dinner next to executives who are in the telecom space. I could not contain them with their excitement as they look forward to the release of the broadband spectrum. They were literally jumping up like young boys and girls with excitement. That already proves that we have embarked on the right policy thrust. A policy framework has been gazetted and the regulator has published its proposals. As part of attracting skilled professionals and growing tourism, we have prioritized immigration reform and changes to the visa regime. Now, this is a matter that had been raised by business executives as a sore point, that as they wanted to come to South Africa and bring people to come and work in their companies, they always face hurdles with the visa regime that we have. That is now changing, and we are going to change it for the better. More countries have been added to the list of visa-free nations for inward tourism. The requirements of unabridged birth certificates for young tourists have been abolished. All we are doing is now finalizing the regulatory aspect, but repeat, they have been abolished. And we are now piloting a new e-visa portal later this month. I saw for myself how this e-visa portal will work when I spent a day at Home Affairs, where if you want to come to South Africa, you just sit in front of your computer screen and make application to get a visa, and you don't have to travel hundreds of kilometers to go to either the capital of your own country or where there is a visa office. We are now going to be fully modernized, and people will be able to get visas just on application in front of their own screens. That is progress. We are now working on a smart system for work permits, for scarce skills, and encourage companies to set up their own African corporate headquarters in South Africa. As the Minister of Finance indicated in his medium-term budget policy statement last week, one of our central priorities is to return our country to a sustainable fiscal path. We are taking several measures to reduce public spending, eliminate wastage in government, and direct resources to where they will have the greatest impact on long-term growth and poverty alleviation. We are committed to taking the necessary measures to stabilize the debt to GDP ratio over the coming years. Our experience over the past 25 years of democracy is that macroeconomic stability and fiscal prudence is essential for investment and economic growth. The security and sustainability of energy supply is critical for investment in our economy. We have embarked on urgent, far-reaching measures to overhaul the energy sector to ensure that it meets the needs of our economy and our people into the future. These measures are set out in the Integrated Resource Plan, which was released by the Minister of Minerals, Resources and Energy, as well as the paper on Eskom, which was released by the Minister of Public Enterprises. We have set out a clear process with timelines which are meant to address the issue of the restructuring of Eskom, our power utility. We want to restructure it so that we modernize it, having learned from what a number of other countries have done in their energy space, and we will be restructuring our Eskom into 3 separate entities for transmission, generation, and distribution. An immediate priority is to appoint a CEO and to revamp and strengthen governance through the revamping of the board, and this is going to be done in the next few days. The other key priority is to deal with Eskom's debt as part of the restructuring process and taking urgent measures to significantly improve operations, to cut costs, and to increase revenue at the Eskom level. The South African Investment Book, ladies and gentlemen, that we will present at this conference illustrates just how much potential with regard to investment opportunities we have in our country. Investors do indeed have much to choose from. And we could say that investors are really going to be spoiled for choice. Here in Gauteng, the country's industrial powerhouse and financial capital, we have enormous opportunities, which were exemplified by how a number of companies, including the one I alluded to yesterday, has opted to increase its own capacity to manufacture more vehicles and export into the continent and into the world. One of our other provinces, Mpumalanga, which is the source of much of the country's energy, it brims with opportunities in tourism and agriculture. Limpopo, which is a province north of this province where we are has diverse mineral deposits and fertile soil, and the Northern Cape is well endowed with mineral resources and is the home of the largest solar farm in the Southern Hemisphere. The Northwest Province, with the world's largest platinum reserves, has great potential for a mining special economic zone that we are looking at. The Free State, with its abundant maize, wheat, and livestock production, also has enormous opportunities in a number of other areas. And the Western Cape, a tourist mecca whose wines are renowned around the world, has enormous other opportunities as well. And there is the Eastern Cape, a leader in automotive exports and a growing renewable energy industry as well. KwaZulu-Natal, with the largest container port in sub-Saharan Africa, thrives in tourism as well as in the maritime sector and is undergoing enormous and rapid growth. The South Africa that we are presenting to you here today is not just the South Africa of the here and now. It is the South Africa of the future. It is a South Africa that is interconnected, technologically advanced, and sustainable. But it is also a South Africa that has embraced development and is growing exponentially in a number of areas, in its education, health, and many, many other areas. Already South Africa is riding the wave of scientific progress to meet the needs of citizens and overcome its developmental challenges. To support sustainable and climate-smart agriculture, farmers are already using mobile applications to track their finances and to sell their produce on the open markets. Drones are now being used in our country in crop management and pest control. Africa's first solar-powered airport is in the city of George in the southern part of our country. Right here in Gauteng, a BMW plant is being powered in part by biogas generated through agricultural feedlot emissions and food waste. South Africa is a land of many contrasts, but it is also a land of enormous opportunities. On one hand, we face substantial developmental challenges, but on the other hand, we are pushing the frontiers of excellence and innovation. And we are reaching out to build partnerships with the continent and the whole world. And we are a country that absorbs knowledge on a continuous basis. And we seek to benchmark ourselves with the good things that many other countries do. Today, we see the signing of agreements to set up business councils with Japan, following my discussions with Prime Minister Abe a few months ago, and with the United States business community, who are also here. There can be no better time to invest in this dynamic, growing economy than now. I look forward to several companies making pledges today. And that is why we have made this stage so large so that companies can come and make their pledges. And we do this not as a gimmick. We do this after close and deep collaboration with the various companies. Last year, as I said, we sought to raise 300 billion, and we did. And 200 and almost 40 billion of that is now committed and is now working. The other portion, the 60 billion, is going through the regulatory hoops. And for those who doubted right at the onset, and many people were very critical, dismissing this whole effort that you're all involved in, and saying this is just a talk shop. And I'd like to say to them, this is no talk shop. This is serious business. We are involved in serious business. And I want to applaud those companies that made commitments, because they have, in the main, and completely lived up to the commitments that they made. Ahead of this conference, people were asking whether we will be able to show any progress. And the answer is yes, we are able to show great progress. One of the commentators criticized us, yes, as government and indeed as other corporations as well. And they said, we tend to do what is said in the Bible, that we hide our light under a bushel. Maybe we don't talk about these achievements very much. And from now on, we are actually going to be showcasing precisely what is being achieved through this type of investment conference. We are indeed involved in serious work, and the companies that will stand here will be making commitments that are serious, that are going to be a shot in the arm of our economy and will result in enormous jobs that will be created. And let us be clear that this is a 5-year trajectory that we are looking at. And some people tend to say we want to see all that happening tomorrow. Life does not work like that. We need to take a medium-term and a long-term view. So in doing so, we need to remain focused on what we want to achieve. You will also be claiming a stake in the collective fortunes of an entire nation by investing in our country. The progress that has been made since we announced our investment in April last year owes much to the hard work of the presidential investment envoys that I appointed to spearhead our efforts. Mr. Jaco Marie, Phumzile Langeni, Trevor Manuel, and Tabisi Jonas have done an enormous job to get us where we are, and I thank them for all the work that they have done. And I wish to express my gratitude to them for the dedication and determination that they have undertaken to their task. To strengthen this work, I have this week appointed additional special envoys to focus on specific investment areas. And these are Mr. Jeff Hadebe, who will focus on oil and gas, and Mr. Derek Hanekom and Mr. Elizabeth Tabete, who will be focusing on tourism to increase the tourism pool in our country. The remarkable achievement of the Springboks in Yokohama, which I must talk about, on Saturday. Now, that achievement has inspired our nation to reach for greatness, to reach beyond the limits of the present towards the boundless opportunities of the future. It has demonstrated the power of a shared vision and common purpose as we undertake the vital task of building a thriving as well as an inclusive economy. We draw strength from the determination of the people of this country to confront even the greatest of challenges and to prevail, notwithstanding the difficulties that we may be going through now. We also draw strength and encouragement from the many business people and investors and entrepreneurs like us who see that there is enormous opportunity in our country and potential. I therefore invite you all to join us to make South Africa a land of stability, of progress, and of prosperity. And I wish you very well as you engage in various discussions in this conference. And I know that at conferences like this, people do interact with each other than just coming to make investment commitments. And I hope and I wish that you move from contact to contract amongst yourself as business people. Thank you very much.